to the Android Headline Show, episode number 27 podcast, the Galaxy S4 special, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Galaxy S4 that was recently released last week. That's what we'll be talking about this whole show long, so if you're not a Galaxy S4 fan, you better take a hike, because that's all we're talking about today. It's all Samsung show. This is our special podcast in regards to it. Today on the show, I have my co-host with me, and we have a packed house with Alex from Detroit Rock City. How you doing, Alex?
Pretty good.
And also as well, I have Brandon over here. How you doing, Brandon?
Outstanding, thank you.
And good old Doug. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing it.
And as well, we also have Nathan. How you doing, Nathan?
Yeah, pretty good.
Good stuff. And finally, but not last, well, he is last, but not least, is Tom the Duke Dawson, all the way from the UK. How you doing, Tom?
I'm fine.
How's the weather in the UK? It looks a little dark.
Well, that's because I live in a cave. No, there's only no rain, just cold. No rain, no rain.
No rain. Amazing.
It's a miracle.
Must be cloudy, though. Must be cloudy.
It's always cloudy. I haven't seen the sun in months.
Years. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me today. We're going to head back actually over to Tom, and he's going to start off the show with about the Galaxy S4 that was just recently announced and give us the full scoop on this new long-awaited phone from Samsung. So what has the S4 got for us, Tom? What was announced?
Well, the phone that we never knew was coming from Samsung has finally been announced, and it's basically a souped-up S3. We'll go into some more detail about some of the headlining thing, but the headlining specs is it's got a 5-inch Super AMOLED Full HD display, which works out 441 ppi. It's got either a Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro in the States, or the Samsung Exynos 5 octa-core elsewhere. It's got 2 GB of RAM. It's going to come in 16, 32, and 64 GB storage options with room for micro SD card. There's a 13 megapixel rear-facing camera and a 2 megapixel front-facing. It's got a 2600 mAh battery. It's going to launch with Android 4.2.2, and there are a few more sensors that Samsung have added. There's a temperature and humidity sensor with an IR blaster to use it as a remote control as well.
That's awesome. Now I just got to buy a Samsung TV. Now there's also, Tom, there's supposed to be a couple different processors with this, right? There's the it's the Qualcomm S4, but that's technically like the 600, right?
No, it's an S4 Pro, but it's at 1.9 gigahertz, so it's clocked higher than like a regular 600, but it was announced as the S4 Pro.
Now, there's also going to be a Samsung Exynos 5 Octa. Now, that's going to be for everybody but the people that really are our audience. So we won't even talk about what you can't have. But unfortunately, we won't be seeing this here. Why won't we be seeing that new Octa processor, Tom?
I actually don't know. I think it's probably to do with LTE, but I don't know what Samsung's official hoo-ha was about it.
Well, I would assume that it probably has to do with that their LTE chip on it isn't designed to handle LTE as of yet, or they don't have the proper radio set up. Alex, do you know anything about that?
What I heard is that only Qualcomm has the LTE on their chips. That's why we always end up having a Qualcomm chip on the S3 and S4 now in the US and wherever else. I think Canada's getting the Snapdragon as well.
Well, that's a disappointment. I would certainly like to see that octa-core. It's going to be quite the beast. What about the design, Tom? Obviously, we know that this phone is made of the finest plastic, right? What is, for people people at home that haven't had a chance to look at it, go to our site, check it out. But overall, it's kind of a cross between an S3 and a Galaxy Note 2. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It's definitely a larger device because it's got you know, the expanded, as Samsung are calling it, the larger screen. But it clocks in at 7.9 millimeters thin. It weighs just 130 grams, and there were two color choices announced, which were black mist and white frost, which is basically just black and white, really. So yeah, it's basically sort of like an evolution of the S3 design that they stuck with the Note 2. So from afar, it'll look just like an S3, but maybe a little bit taller. You know.
Now there is a bit of a design on the plastic itself, right? So it isn't quite the, you know, just the plain plastic that we seen last year on the S3.
Yeah, they've gone for like I think they've gone for like a, you know, like a sort of textured effect underneath the glass. Not, you know, like I don't think it's going to be the same as the you know, the sort of the pearlescent sort of lining sort of ripple thing they had on the S3 and the Note 2. But I don't know how much you're going to notice it unless you know, have it on, you know, unless you
put it under a microscope and check it out.
Yeah, unless you sort of look for it. I don't know how many people are going to notice, especially from afar. So, unfortunately, the meme of people not knowing you've upgraded is still true.
All right. Well, let's head over to Alex here. Alex got a little bit more information here about the hardware. What are we looking at the display here, Alex? What kind of display have we got?
The display is a 5-inch 1080p Super AMOLED. I think it's Super AMOLED HD. I think it's 441 ppi. The bezels are smaller, so it's almost the same size as the S3, since it's 0.2 inches bigger.
Now we've heard that
physical buttons down there.
Now we heard that this display might be one of the better ones yet. There was some talk that they were going to go with an LCD display, but I ended up going with the AMOLED. What's the talk about it being better?
I don't think it's better, but those AMOLEDs are always so bright.
Well, we'll have to definitely see once we get some test units and do some benchmarks and see. But it does look like it's going to be a pretty nice display on it. How about, we've already talked a little bit about the processor. What are we looking at for RAM and battery wise out of this thing?
RAM is the 2 gigabytes, which we saw last year in a US version of the S3, and then the battery is upgraded to a 2600 milliamp per hour battery, which I don't know if you're going to see a huge difference in battery life compared to the S3, since it is a bigger display with more pixels to push, and it's only 500 milliamps difference.
And what about the camera? I mean, that's always an important feature. There was a lot of talk about the camera and some of the features in there.
Yeah, there's a 13 megapixel on the front with 2 megapixels on the or 13 on the back and 2 on the front. And there's a lot of new camera features they added in there.
All right, well we'll hit on some of those features there. Maybe we'll head over to Brandon and he can tell us a little bit about some of the software that's going to be going into this phone, because it seems like the main focus on this phone wasn't so much the hardware and the design as it was maybe the software and the features that came with this phone that seemed to be what were really promoted at this event. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about some of those camera features, Brian?
Yeah, you know, basically it's just a whole bunch of features, like it takes the front and the back camera and kind of conjoins the two together, where you can take, it's called dual mode, but you can take a picture of somebody and have yourself added into it at the same time. And then there's a kind of like a feature with their chat on app where you can, it's like Google Hangout, but you can chat up to 3 people instead of, you know, all these people.
There's also the eraser shot on there as well too. So you can if you have Uncle Bob who's drunk at the family get together, you can erase him right out of the shot and pretend he's already dead.
Things that all of us will use.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, how that works is it takes up to 5 photos consecutively to capture the moving people, so that you can just tap on it and it will just erase them out of the picture altogether.
There was also that one feature where you can record a voice, I think it is, a voice message with a picture while you're taking a picture. You know, Johnny can tell Grandma how much he misses her and send money because he needs it for school books, type of thing.
Yeah, it's a sound shot. It basically, as you said, it just records the sound. It kind of reminds me of that voice MMS feature that you can find on other phones that you can send along with pictures too.
Well, that's great. Now, what is this about AirView? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, AirView is kind of a thing where it was found on the Galaxy Note versions using the S Pen, but instead of using the S Pen, you have like a finger with the temperature sensor and everything that you could kind of hover your finger over the screen and it'll give the same effect, basically.
Nice. Now, there's also a smart pause, a smart scroll. What's that? How does that work exactly?
Well, it kind of goes off the idea where you're from Smart Stay, where you're looking at the screen and it kind of looks at you every once in a while to figure out whether you're looking at the screen or not. And I suppose they kind of, I don't know how it works exactly, but if you're looking towards the bottom of the screen, it'll capture that and start scrolling down or up in regards. And in Smart Pause, you can just look away altogether and it'll just pause it and then.
I was wondering how that was going to work. You know, if I'm like looking at this and then I decide, oh, I'm going to go check over here, does it like freak out and go off the screen or something? But it just pauses, is what you say, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now there's also some more stuff about the S voice. They did some upgrades to that. Was there anything huge on that?
Yeah, kind of. They've added more features to it, like Translate, which is akin to Google Translate. And then there's S Drive for driving mode. It's kind of like for your Bluetooth-enabled car. And then there's, let's see, S Health.
S Health, yes. What's all that all about?
Well, S Health is pretty much a personal physician, I guess you could say. It advises you on what you're doing, how far you're walking, what you're eating for calories, and it kind of summarizes it in a general report that you can kind of look at and improve on from there.
Okay. Well, we could dive in a little bit more into it as well. What's the group play that was announced as well, too, with it?
Well, the group play, it's actually pretty cool, I think. You can share music with up to 8 Galaxy S4 devices. You can beam it over, and then you can usually actually act as a 7-channel surround sound system. And you can set each phone to be like the left speaker, right speaker, front and center, so on and so forth.
I think this is just their ploy at having you buy more Galaxy S phones.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for that, Brandon. We're going to head over to Tom, and Tom's got a little information about a wireless gamepad prototype that showed up as well, too, at the event. What's this, Tom?
Basically, it's out of CES we saw the Project Shield. Imagine Nvidia's gaming console. Imagine Project Shield, but it's basically just got the Samsung's Project, their Moga controller sort of thing, and it's a controller that you pull like a I don't know what you'd call it, like a grabber out or something, and it gets bigger and smaller. I don't know, the slot and it expands, and you can put the Galaxy S4 in there, and it'll take a Galaxy Note 2, and it's basically a controller for Samsung branded devices, and it connects via Bluetooth. It takes AAA batteries, and it's basically an Xbox 360 controller, but worse.
Did Samsung just kind of crap all over the NVIDIA controller Project Shield and basically say,
well,
we'll
you know,
just
this is
throw a
what.
phone, you know, you can plug your phone in
Yeah.
and here's your Project Shield. You don't have to buy a separate device.
Well, I mean, this is what Samsung are good at. You know, they see a lot of sort of trends emerging and stuff. You know, they just think, fuck it, we'll have a feature. So this is their way of sort of getting in this game of sort of portable gaming. You know, real portable gaming is in like, you know, the kind of gaming you get on a PlayStation Portable or a Nintendo 3DS meets the smartphone. You don't have to have you know, one device. You can have one or the other sort of thing. It's only a prototype right now, so there's
They'll
no
probably
sort of,
sell it for about $350 cheaper than Tegra will.
yeah, but you've got to buy an S4, so
Yeah,
you
so-
know, you've got
but
to
you
lock
still
into
gotta
a
buy an
2-year.
S4 anyways, because the other one you can't make phone calls on it, so you're gonna need to
Well,
buy
I mean,
a
would you
phone
want to put a Project Shield to your face? I mean, it'd be like holding a house brick,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
But yeah, basically, it's what Samsung would do if.
It's a smart accessory if you think about it, because people love their
Well.
gaming and they love their little controllers and stuff like that, right? And you know,
I mean, I think the good thing about it is that the good thing is I mean, they have like a sort of like arcade app which looks suspiciously like the one that Nvidia showed off on the Project Shield, where it'll tap into all the games you have on your device and you can sort of launch them. Like Steam would, or you know, on your Xbox, you've got lots of games, you browse through them on, you launch them from one interface. It doesn't look nice actually. It looks horrible. But I mean, it's a good idea, and you know, it's good that Samsung are sort of tailoring it to a number of their devices. But
all right. Well, thanks a lot for that, Tom. We're gonna head back over to Doug, and Doug has a little bit more information about that kind of cool eye tracking gestures and hover previews. Give us a little more information on that, Doug.
Yeah, so basically, Samsung had quite a few software tweaks, obviously, that are included in its TouchWiz skin that it has that runs on top of Android. And we've already talked about most of them. The biggest thing that they seemed to talk about was the Air View, which we already discussed. So you can basically hover your finger over content and it'll have some type of a feature. It'll show you some type of extra information if you hover your finger over without tapping it. And then the other big thing was air gestures, which, I mean, the
You
demo...
can go like this to the phone and it gets what that is.
I mean, I don't really
yeah,
know.
you just
They
sort of like
really
swipe.
tell us.
It's a flying bird gesture.
You know, you would think that in an hour presentation we would know what it looked like to use it, but we really don't have any idea. I don't think they really had anybody using it in the presentation, which we'll come back to. But all that being said, the idea is you can interact with the phone without touching the screen. I know they've taken a lot of flack for this. I could see it being useful because I use my phone to read recipes while I'm cooking sometimes,
There you go.
and sometimes my hands are messy. I could see
There you
scrolling
go.
up the
Perfect.
page without touch. It's really specific, I know, but I could see I'm not going to buy the phone because of it. Anyway, those were the two main things. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything important here.
You know,
Well, we talked about the smart pause with the eye tracking, with the videos. Those are the main things that they were talking about in the presentation. They sound cool if they really work really well out in the real world, especially, and my big thing is pausing your video when you look away from the device is fine. But it's going to have to start it again right when you look back at it, or else you're going to like go ahead and hit play, and then that'll actually pause it because it just started playing, and that could get pretty frustrating.
it'll be interesting to see how it works because I have ADD and I'm like, you know, I'm all over the place. I'm looking at my phone here and checking this, looking up, down, all around. Meanwhile, the video's playing, so I don't know if that feature will work for me. And most importantly, what happens with people that have lazy eyes?
You don't get into a smart screen.
I don't
No
know
smart
if they've factored in this issue. You know, it's
Presumably, you can turn it off. I
Okay.
mean, surely.
All right. And what about people with glasses? You know, is this...
No smart screen for you.
Or
Simple as
glass
that.
eyes. Or what about eye patches?
There we go. No, in all fun, it's kind of a fun
Come
thing.
on, if you've got an eye patch, Doug, you did not think that one through. If you're wearing an eye patch, you're not using a smartphone. I mean, come on.
So,
What about the pirate demographic?
Doug, tell us about the new driving features. Look
Yes,
like
okay.
stuff there.
That was the other thing that they didn't really demo, but they kind of told us about. Apparently, when you're driving, now the Galaxy S3 already has options where it'll read. Now, I don't actually own one, but I have friends that do. So it will read you text messages. This will do that as well. So if you're driving, you get a message, it'll read the message to you. Or actually, I think it notifies you that you got the message. Then you can have it read it, something along those lines. Then you have the option to ignore it or reply to it, speak your reply, and then send it.
That's really breakthrough technology. I think we've had that a couple of years ago, didn't we?
Well, the Galaxy S3 had pretty much all that stuff, so none of it's really all that new. I mean,
it's kind of, they're trying to make it Siri, Google Now-ish type of integration where you maybe have a few more commands than before.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see how well it works in real life.
That's the true test. Now, Tommy, they have a few. You know, it's not a huge thing, but the S Translator got 9 languages now.
It has.
What else has it got? Has it got anything else besides being able to translate when I'm on vacation in strange countries where I can't speak the language?
Well, actually, I mean, a lot of people were saying, you know, you can do all these sort of things with Google Translate, and you can. I mean, Google Translate is immensely powerful, and it is. But S Translator is, it does Chinese, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, Spanish, and English. And as they pointed out in the presentation, they noted that it will in fact translate English with a British accent into English normally. So thanks for that, Samsung. You really, really made me feel happy about that.
Samsung's my hero.
It's important, you know.
They weren't talking about you guys at all.
They won't understand.
I don't think it does slang. I mean, that would be good if it did. But no, and basically, aside from just back and forth with the languages, you can, an example use would be, you're on holiday in Germany, and you need to ask someone on the
hookers and beer.
If you want, yeah. I mean, let's say you're in Germany and you need to find the nearest beer hall because you're in Germany. So you can just talk it into the phone, then hand it to the German man. It'll speak to the German man. The German man will speak to the phone will speak to you in English or whatever else language. So it's basically it's like Samsung's Babelfish, basically, and it works quite well. But
there's not much more you can say. It's a translator. That's pretty well what it does, right? You know what I'm kind of interested in? We're going to go to our next story here with Nathan about this. How you doing, Nathan?
All right, man.
The Galaxy 4 comes with a complete fitness tracker and S Health app, which I'm sure fitness freaks and enthusiasts are going to love this one. I seen it comes with a scale. Now I'm sure you don't want to carry the scale around with your phone, but it seems like a really neat idea.
We've got an image of people standing on their phones.
I got my scale. Yeah, hey, can you stand on the phone with it? And will it weigh?
Yeah, not this plastic.
No, not this one. What is it? What is it, Nathan? What is this?
Man, basically they take advantage of all those sensors they put in with the S4, and there's actually 3 or 4 accessories you can get with it. They have a wristband, kind of like the Fitbit or the Jawbone Up, as well as a band that goes around your chest and will.
In case you're having a heart attack, it can
can translate your heart rate back to your phone, and then along with the scale, like you mentioned, put your weight into your phone, and it just takes all that, puts it into the app. And you can enter like what you ate that day. It'll put your calories in and just tell you how you're losing weight, how you're gaining weight, your basic overall health through one app.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, it's also, what does it say? It says anyone with a pressure meter, glucose meter, you can rest easy because you can sync that information as well too.
Yeah, basically all around health. I mean, your whole body, and just put it all into your app, and you know what's going on. Give it to your doctor when you go to the doctor, and they know what's going on, and it's pretty cool for all that.
You know, and it is quite cool. I mean, because a lot of people, you know, the fitness industry is very huge. People are always buying type of gadgets, you know, check their heart rate and, you know, and watching their weight, what they eat, you know, and glucose, they're exercising. There's tons of apps in it. It's kind of nice to see those features kind of synced in there. Obviously, you know, you have to be into that to really use it. But for those people that are into running and stuff like that, or just watching their health overall, it's kind of nice to see that it all kind of syncing together, and you can get like these accessories for it, and it, you know, it eliminates you having to buy extra devices as well too, and you know, kind of all the information at your fingertips as well.
Right, and I mean, maybe even bigger part of it is having all those accessories. So, I mean, I hate to say it, but kind of Apple-like. When you walk into Best Buy, they're going to have that Samsung section out there, and you're going to have all these. You're going to be able to get your phone, your cases, your scale, your little Fitbit,
your bands,
your accessories, and you pick up all that in your little Samsung section at Best Buy or wherever they put it, and that's going to help out their sales for all of that rather than just picking it up wherever.
For sure. And the neat thing is with their eye tracking movement and these motion gestures, you could definitely see down the road where they could get exercising involved with your phone too, where it watching you and you doing your exercises, counting reps and stuff like that, maybe even playing games through exercising stuff, you know, kind of like what the Xbox does with their Kinetics stuff. So you could see that they're definitely just on the, you know, the tip of, you know, building this out as well too, with the different type of features. Definitely kind of some neat stuff. I don't, you know, if I think you have to be an enthusiast at first to kind of adopt this. Plus, as well, you know, a really high tech guy. But I think that tech and, you know, and exercising and fitness are all becoming intercombined now. So it is definitely a neat feature. I think it's something that probably no other phone has brought to the market yet, right?
Right, yeah. Right now you have to get it from separate places. You have to go to Fitbit or Jawbone and get your separate accessories and get their app and add it on. This is pretty much the first time it's been integrated into all that.
And plus, you'll start to see now also as well other applications taking advantage of the S4 technology for this stuff. So that is quite a neat feature, and I think that kind of rounds up what the Galaxy S4 was all about. Was that this phone was more about the features than it was so much about producing the most groundbreaking hardware or design. It was more about taking what they already had success with, the S3, and pushing it farther with the features, because the hardware, you know, there's only so much you can push, you know, these days. And it's more about, you know, these features, and some of these features may sway, you know, people from buying other phones or potentially other operating systems, Blackberries, iPhones, stuff like that. You know, for example, a health enthusiast might be swayed to a Galaxy S4 just for all these features alone. So it definitely, you know, the features were the name of the game. You know, and I think that's where they're going to make most of their sales this year, is that a lot of these features are probably going to be the difference makers, because it's not really so much the hardware this year. So we've also, you know, we did some stories as well, how the Galaxy S4 kind of stacks up to some of the other devices, you know, the Sony Xperia Z and the HTC One that was released a couple weeks back. And I want to kind of you know, get your guys' opinion on how you feel about the phone itself in comparison to some of the other models. I'll start off over here with Alex. How does it stack up to the competition? Do you like the other phones more? Do you like the S4? What's your personal opinion on how it stacks up to the competition?
I would choose the HTC One over the S4. Mainly because of the way it's built. Because a lot of the stuff in the S4, a lot of that software, I'm not going to use. I'm just going to disable it. It's just more bloatware, basically, for me.
Okay, so the features didn't really do much for you, too much, and was it the design that turned off, or
The design and all the plastic.
and all the plastic? You know, and before we get too far with everyone kind of going on about the plastic, HTC, Samsung, I think they got the picture. You know, media was very hard on them before the announcement when the leaks started coming out. That plastic was just, you know, something kind of that the users were starting to get a little bit annoyed with in the design. And there were some interviews after the phone was announced, and you kind of got the sense that this was going to be the last ugly plastic phone from Samsung. And now I'm not
I swear,
saying,
no more plastic. No more plastic after this one.
no, I'm not going to say that this would be the last plastic phone, because plastic has its place. You know, that it's cheap to produce. It can be sometimes more durable. It also
It's a gateway drug.
It also can work better with some of the hardware as well too, because some of the aluminum designs can have issues. So plastic is still going to be out there. There's no doubt about it. But the design, you know, you have a company that's billion-dollar company that could spend a lot more money on coming up with some more creative designs with plastic, some more aesthetically pleasing designs as well too. You know, so I don't think they wanted to alienate too much and jump away from what sold 50 million units last year or 100 million units, because they just kind of, you know, blew up in success. And they were kind of worried about maybe doing something a little bit too different. I think they played it a little bit too safe in the design-wise. You know, I have my own personal opinions on the phone, but before I get to that, let's hand it over to Brandon. What did you think about the phone? And in competition to like the One, S4, and the Z.
Well, as far as software goes, sometimes when I get a new phone, I just automatically root it and see what I can flash. So mainly, I just
You don't really care about all those features to a certain degree.
no, not really, because in a way, when the S3 was first released, and we already saw half those features on the market on Google Play in third-party apps. So that for me is kind of a mundane reason in itself. Hardware, I like the Exynos 5, and I like the idea of Super AMOLED displays, but I really don't like the idea of buying the same design year after year, and that's what really got me on
Okay,
that.
fair enough. Doug, how about you? How do you think it stacks up to the competition? What did you think about it?
The processor looks fantastic. It's got 2 gig of RAM. Everything I've seen about the screen, it's a full HD screen. It looks good. It obviously isn't great. It's not going to blow your mind. But I don't think we were really expecting that from Samsung. I mean, they've always had good screens, but never really amazing screens. I mean, for me personally, it's got a removable battery, which I love. It's got a SD card slot, which I love. It's got a nice big battery. It's got fantastic hardware. I mean, that's good enough for me. Obviously, you know, we're only really halfway through this whole process of all the new phones being announced. We still haven't heard, well, we've heard from LG, we've heard from Samsung, we've heard from HTC. We still need to hear about the next Nexus device and the next Motorola device before we really have a good picture of this generation of smartphones. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's solid as far as the phone itself goes. And I mean, I'm going to put a custom ROM on it anyway, so I don't really care what Samsung does with their software.
We might be the wrong guys to ask about software. We might be the wrong guys. You know, these things are rooted really quick. Now, just quick. Now, over an HTC S4 or a Z, what do you pick?
I would probably go with the S4, mostly because I feel like Samsung makes really dependable hardware. I don't believe the HTC One has the removable battery or the SD card slot. which are important to me. If I were super into taking pictures, anybody who's super into that, I would recommend the HTC One all the way because it looks like it's a killer camera.
All right. Thanks for the input. Nathan, over to you. What do you think about the phone itself, and what about do you pick it over the competition? What's your thoughts on it?
Right now, I'd still go with the HTC One just because I'm more into hardware and the software really. But it's obviously gonna matter to a million people. They're all gonna buy it. They go in the store, buy the iPhone or the S4, and that's really gonna be their only choice. But we're tech guys. We care a little differently about our devices, and right now the One is what I'd be going with.
What does the One sell you? What about the One, makes you pick it over an S4?
Man, just the beauty of it, just how great it looks right now to me. The
design
and the screen, basically about like the Nexus 4, just a very beautiful device.
Okay, fair enough. And over to the UK with Tom here. Tom, what do you feel about the S4? What do you think about it?
Of course, I get a little bit of a different say on things because I get the Exynos 5 Octa, and you get stuck with last year's Snapdragon. But out of those three, I'd take the Xperia Z any day. Mostly because it looks so much nicer than the other two. It's like,
but software. In all fairness, though, Tom, let me say we don't even got the Xperia Z here yet. But I did ask all three.
Well, I would still take the One over the S4. I think mostly because I have a massive aversion to AMOLED displays. But I don't know. It's like the HTC One is a nice looking device as long as you get it in their grey black color because it looks horrible in white. But I would go with the same sort of reasons that Nathan has. I'd go with design. I always go with design. I know I'd probably end up get stuck on like Android 4.2 forever, but my phone would look nice. And if I got the Xperia Z, it would be dust and waterproof. So
there you go. All right. Well,
I need in life.
I'll throw my hat in the ring here, and I'll say that I did like the S4 more than I do like the S3 because I actually was the design last year I found it to be really plain. I think this year there's just enough changes to it, kind of a cross between a Note 2 and an S3 that gives it more appeal, and just not that plain plastic. Even though it's not a huge difference, there's a little bit more. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, but I do think that it does have a better look than the S3. In terms of specs-wise as well, I think it's a more complete phone compared to last year. I think that this, even though last year was pretty decent phone in comparison to the models that were out there, I think it's pretty complete in terms of what we're seeing, with the other phones. And as well, feature-wise, it's got a lot of features. It does. It's got a little bit of something for everybody. My wife has the S3. She has a lot of features on there that she's never used. And I have a Note 2. There's a lot of features on there that I would never use. But unfortunately, not every user's the same. And everyone's going to find, something different on a phone that appeals to them. And I do like the feature riches that is on there. Some of it a little bit too bloated for me, possibly. The Sony Xperia Z, I like that phone. I really like the look of the phone. Under the hood, it's kind of like last year's phone, so it doesn't really do a whole lot for me. In terms of the HTC One, I kind of sit on the fence in terms of design-wise. I'm not sure if I like it. I'm not sure if I do. I like the material that they used with the design, the aluminum, a little bit different. So that definitely has an appeal to me. HTC One is so poor with their updates, though. Really had until they kind of change their track record. It kind of And then on the other hand, Samsung is kind of getting a little too big for their britches sometimes as well. That's a whole nother ball game. So sometimes I don't want to. So you know what? I'm gonna take the cheap way out, and I'm not gonna pick any of them. But overall, I do give the S4 the advantage over the other phones. Personally, for me, I probably won't purchase any one of them though. And just in terms of speaking about specs, before we get on to some of the other stuff that I wanted to talk to you guys about today, we just before we started the story, the podcast, there was a story about benchmarks that had came out, and Alex had done the story for us, and I'll kind of steal his thunder here. The Galaxy S3 came in dead last out of all the phones that were compared. And the next was the BlackBerry Z10, or Z10, whatever you want to call it. The iPhone 5 was next. Then the Galaxy S3 with the Exynos processor, only available in Europe. And then was the LG Nexus 4. And then the HTC One. And then the Galaxy S4 was being the #1 phone in benchmarks. So kudos to them for still putting together a solid performing phone. Excuse me. So, you know, in terms of specs-wise, you know, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 600, which is the official title, which is basically just a beefed-up S4 Pro, it handily almost doubles the benchmarks of the Galaxy S3. So in terms of performance-wise, Galaxy fans are going to be very happy with it. You know, it handily smokes the iPhone 5 as well too, and it's about almost 1,000 over the Nexus 4 as well too. So you can't really say that this phone is not going to, you know, be competitive in the specs department, because it's definitely going to be a fast phone for sure. Any other guys want to throw in some other comments in regards to the phone that we may have missed? Likes or dislikes about it? No? Everyone's kind of quiet about it? Really? I'm surprised. Okay.
I mean, for what it's worth, I don't care that it's plastic. I might be the only person on the planet, but I don't really care.
No, there's a ton of people.
Like 95% of us put covers on our phones anyway. I mean, I don't, but I feel like everybody does. Does it really matter that much?
I don't put covers on my phones.
Me neither.
I don't know.
No, I don't like the whole plastic thing.
I think they could have spent more time. I mean, there was a rumor heading around the other day that potentially they had a lot of different designs for this phone, and this is the one that they went with at the end. And, you know, they could have used more texturized plastic, you know, some more type of unique designs. You know, they have a large company. They could have really have spent a lot more R&D on a design. You know, I think it had a lot to do with not wanting to alienate, you know, the market share that they had. They almost basically pulled an iPhone type of mentality with not wanting to rock the boat or change too much, and they wanted to do, you know, kind of the safe move with the phone, which, you know, on one aspect, us guys, you know, we want to see something new, cutting edge that blows our minds. You know, but it always isn't feasible. Not, you know, there's no doubt about that they could have done a little bit better on it. But you know what? That'll just all of us make us look forward to looking for the S phone. You know, sorry, not the iPhone, but the Galaxy S5. Because basically, this was a Galaxy 3S kind of in my mind. The specs were bumped up, but in terms of design, it wasn't a whole lot of change.
And what's even more...
Go ahead, Nathan.
What's even more irksome there is we're going to pay the same price for that plastic as we do for a well-made aluminum phone every time.
Yes.
If they're going to do that, at least pass the savings down to the consumer. We don't want to pay for your R&D. We don't want to pay for all the ads that you're putting up to sell more. You're making millions. Charge for what you pay.
All right.
Yes.
Do like Google does with the Nexus.
Well, You know, and we kind of played devil's advocate over the weekend on a lot of things with Samsung. You know, we covered it pretty in depth, and if you go to our site, you can find out everything about, you know, the Samsung launch, everything about this device. You know, the one thing that I think was truly the ugly part of this entire launch of this phone was the event itself. Now, before I get too far into that, I'll give them kudos. I'll give Samsung kudos for actually holding a fucking event. It's a lot more than, you know, some other carriers don't do. And some of them don't even stream or broadcast it, even though I'm not sure this one should have been streamed or broadcast because of the poor quality of it. But still, you know, the HTC phone, it was announced and it was a great phone, but who's seen it? Just the press guys. Only the press guys. The marketing, you know, how much would it have cost them really to have gone and put that HTC One on display for the world, you know, stream it to YouTube. Fuck, put it on Google Hangout for all I care, okay? But, you know, stream the device, let the people know instead of, you know, having to, you know, kind of go and look at pictures, you know, so 5 years ago. You know, where, you know, they could have streamed and put on an event. They were talking about how they needed to do some marketing, you know, and it's kind of like, maybe, you know, maybe holding, you know, a broadcasted event would have been a great way to, you know, create some more energy and buzz for the phone. And then HTC goes on to slam Samsung about their poor quality event, but unfortunately, no one's seen theirs because it was not broadcasted. Now, that is a little separate away from the Samsung event, and I just wanted to talk about the Samsung event too because it had a lot of flaws. The show was very orchestrated in my mind by a very poor producer. It looked like a really bad Broadway show that should have been closed down after the first night with some really cheap actors. They paid about $50 to each to come out and act.
And they were still overpaid.
They were. You know, for some of the people in the tech industry that watched the Qualcomm event back in CES, you know, that made that look like a professional, you know, movie compared to this. It was just horribly done. There was some sexist comments in there. There was, you know, some derogatory comments even towards women. It was, you know, and I'm sure it didn't, you know, meant to be come out that way, but it came out horrible. They had, you know, lack of live video, poor lighting, poor actors. It seems so, like, I mean, of course it has to be scripted, but it was scripted like a high school play. I mean, you would think with all their money behind them, they could have had somebody put together a bloody George Lucas fucking Star Wars type of event. But unfortunately, we got this PBS 2 a.m. in the morning high school production. And to me, it really degraded the device. You know, the device, you know, had some mixed feelings. And when you put together an event that is so subpar like that, you know, it's hard to get excited. Now, that's just my opinion, and I might be wrong, but let me go around here and tell you guys let me hear what you guys had to say about it. Brandon, did you watch the event?
Yeah, I did, actually.
What were your thoughts on the event?
Well, they were trying to focus on two things at once. One, they were trying to focus on entertaining the masses, and then they were trying to inform the masses. And that's kind of like adding Coke to whiskey. You know, both those products are great, but you don't get the full flavor when mixed together. And I think they kind of really messed up on that part there, and that's my opinion.
Compared to last year's event, this thing was just horrible. You know, the year before, not that they did an Academy Award-winning launch the year before or anything, but you know,
don't give Samsung credit whilst taking it away from them. You can't do that.
Well, I'll give them Academy Awards for last year compared to this year. Doug, what did you think about it? I know you got some input on it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you know, you touched on most of the big parts. It was cheesy. It was horrible. Here's the thing that I noticed, because I watched it live, and then was working on an article about it, so I decided to watch it again, which was, the only word for it is masochism. That was a horrible idea. It made me sad. It ruined the whole day.
I'm sorry to hear you had to watch it again.
It was awful. It really, really was. I could have gotten shot that day, and watching that for the second time would have been the worst thing that happened to me that day.
Oh, you went there.
But the point is, and at the end of the day, the problem is that it didn't highlight the device, and it was horrible. But here's the thing that I noticed my second time through is I thought that the crowd wasn't mic'd when I saw it the first time, and I was like, oh, people in the room are probably laughing. We just can't hear them because they didn't mic the crowd properly, which is completely inexcusable for a production of this caliber, but that's fine. But when I watched it through the second time, the crowd was mic'd. It's just that every single joke bombed so hard that the crowd didn't even give them a courtesy chuckle.
They needed to have those, like in LA, laugh signs so people knew when to laugh.
Yeah. If you've ever been to like an open mic comedy night, which I really enjoy going to, like, if somebody's horrible, like there'll be some drunk idiot in the front who's like, who just feels bad for the person because, hey, at least they're trying. Samsung couldn't even get a courtesy laugh. It was sad. And the big problem is it was so horrible, it distracted from the device. And I mean, like you guys said, it did not market the device. We didn't get to know the device. We don't know how these features work because they didn't do live demos. It was a tragedy, and everyone involved in planning it should be very unemployed.
Dude, they should be fired. I don't know who put that show together or who had approval for that show, but they should not be working anything to do with film studio.
If it was a Chinese company, it would have been executed. That's how bad it was.
All right, look,
literally, these guys should have been sued for the poor production. They're worried about, people stealing their patents and harming their products. The actors should be fucking sued for harming their products.
Well, nobody's going to steal that announcement.
It was, what was that, Alex?
Nobody's going to steal that announcement.
No one wants
no one.
Maybe Qualcomm.
Qualcomm invented this shit, man. It's just another event. It's just another thing of Samsung just thought, hey, that looks really nice. We'll do that.
Qualcomm's going to sue them tomorrow about it.
Okay, and now I want to know, they have some execs up there, some guys who are brilliant, and some marketing gurus, and spend billions of dollars an analyst. And,
really?
I'm sure they must have, maybe done a rough, dry run of this show. Who the fuck approved it? Who approved it?
They did one run through of the show. That's all they did.
Well,
one run through.
And I think no one was paying attention because it was bloody
Could
horrible.
not make this up.
I mean, these guys literally, they needed to say, screw the Broadway shit, let's just have the guy talk about it. But obviously they couldn't even do that because they didn't have the live demos. The actors were so horrible, I couldn't believe I was watching them, and yeah, I was distracted from the phone because that lady screaming with her cheesy acting was totally, like, annoying the hell out of me. I didn't even want to watch it anymore. Okay, but that's how I felt. Alex, you want to add any 2 cents to that?
Well, last year they spent, $400 million on marketing? And I guess they spent like $5 on that.
On the show, yeah.
$5.
$5.
On their new flagship device. So what's the Note 3 gonna have? Like $10?
Somebody in there, you know what I think will happen in it, and here, I know what the answer is. They borrowed somebody from HTC marketing to run this event.
I wouldn't know.
Surely not.
Oh.
So that's why HTC was trolling.
That's right. All right, Nathan, what did you have to think about the show?
Yeah, the show was horrible, but and the biggest part is looking at it. It's kind of like you look at the Samsung USA marketing against the Samsung Korea or the Samsung Mobile USA, and look at their commercials. I mean, you have the iPhone line commercials coming from Samsung USA, and then you have the ones on YouTube with the very wide people, the wife and stuff, and coming from Samsung Korea. and you have to know that a lot of this came from Samsung Korea, and it's just a cultural disconnect
don't
there.
get Americans.
Right, they don't get us, and there's a cultural disconnect there. I mean, their billboards in Korea will be like, "Hey, buy this house; it'll make your life better." So this
panda on the side of
the whole life companion thing is straight out of a Korean marketing, and they just do not get the cultural disconnect and the irony that Americans have.
Yeah, I think Nathan's hit the thing on that. It's like, you know, like if you buy something like...
Just one second. So, Nathan, you're saying that Koreans think that Americans love bad acting?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
But you do not do that.
Nilay Patel from The Verge did a story, and he was talking with some of the producers, and they said it was so micromanaged that they would send the scripts to Korea and they would just send them back totally different, and they were so back and forth with that they didn't even know what was going to happen until right before the show, what the actors were even going to say. And because just the way
no wonder the acting was so bad. We had Koreans writing the script.
Right.
Jesus. All right, now Tom, throw in your 2 cents. Sorry to interrupt you, buddy.
No, I think Nathan's, he's hit on that. It's like, you know, when you buy something like a cheap piece of electronics off of eBay and it comes from like Hong Kong, and you open up the little manual and it's got like sort of like badly translated English. It's like that's
with
what that show was.
And pandas on there and
no. I mean, it's like.
Well, that's what the show reminded me of. Sorry.
It was just like a massive disconnect rift. It's like the things on stage, we think they're so bad because none of this would ever happen in Western culture. It's so bizarre. I mean, it's like, for instance, the very idea of announcing your flagship smartphone without showing off the phone and then overloading us with these features that most of us are going to think, it's great, never going to use it. You know, it's just, I mean, for a lot of there's that big disconnect, but it was just another way for Samsung to push features. Like, I mean, we saw the phone on screen for like, what, when he held it up and he showed off the specs. I could barely see it
because the lighting was so bad, but...
Well, yeah, it's like the phone... Well, yeah, I mean, the phone just like pops up.
They needed to use an AMOLED screen. Sorry.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, they popped up the...
The screen was brighter than all the lights in the place.
Really would not be surprised. But no, it's just a way of sort of pushing all these features and more features. It's like... No one really cares.
They were pimping this little kid out there, and you know, and
oh man, Jeremy! I mean,
that kid could tap dance though.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
But you know, and then they had the woman out there with a glass of wine, pretending to be drunk and obnoxious. It's like a total slap in the face type of, you know, entire.
The whole thing they did for S-Voice driving. I know how to drive. Well, you know, I
got a really good picture of that one.
You know, I do not need someone on stage to tell me how to drive with a smartphone. Just tell me what's better. Don't.
Obviously, I think we're all in agreement that the phone is a lot better than the actual event was. That's for sure. And hopefully,
so why did they just show the phone off?
Right.
Why not? I don't want to see cheap, out of work fucking actors. I want to see the phone.
Yeah, give us a demonstration. Give a demonstration of it actually being used. I mean, every demonstration they did was not real time. They didn't have anything from the phone going on at all. The translation thing, they just had one guy talking, the phone over the loudspeakers talking back to him, and then the other guy from a different language talking back to them. Nothing, no feature from the phone was shown at all.
It was just, I mean, I think when you talk about demonstrations, it's difficult not to bring Apple into things because it's like when they stand up on stage, they are so arrogant. They bring like another device out and they say, "Oh, well, this is awful," but they do it in like a really snarky way. But at the end of the day, it's like the iPhone 5. There wasn't much different about it. But the people that saw that event, you know, watched it and you know whatever, they knew what was different about it and they knew what was changed and they knew, you know, what worked and they were in and out of what, like 40, 45 minutes.
And I think, you know, it comes a lot when you have these type of events that the press, you know, and the people that are there, very impressionable. And if you can create excitement and, you know, enthusiasm and general interest in the product itself and the design, that translates back into the, you know, the reviews and the articles that are written. When you put together kind of a half-assed show, you're going to end up with a half-assed type of, you know, response from the customers and as well from, you know, the press that was there. And I think that's kind of what happened. I don't think the device was as bad as the production. They'll still sell, you know, what, 50, 70, 100 million of these devices. There's no hands down that it won't. You know, the brand is too large that it will. Will a lot of people upgrade from the Galaxy S3? We'll see. You know, Galaxy S2 owners or contracts are coming up. Good chance they're going to come. They're going to still sell a lot of this device, but the event definitely did not sell the device. I think the device sold for itself, and the event probably did more harm than good. And that's what I have to say about that. Any guys want to throw anything else in before we finish up the show?
And the people who watch the event are not the people who are going to buy it. I mean, that's just the main thing about it. They were preaching to the wrong crowd, and they should have had a tech demonstrations and tech show for the tech people.
They should have had William Shatner down there.
Right,
sell it. Star Wars,
to the
George Lucas, you know, light show, pyro techniques, and
you mean Disney George Lucas,
yeah.
right?
Sell it to your everyday audience and your ads later on. You should have had a better show.
Yeah, Disney could have done a better production. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining me on this Galaxy S4 special. Thank you, Alex, Brandon, Doug, Nathan, and Tom. And we'll be back to you for the next special event soon enough. So in the meantime and in between time, that's it for the Android Headline Show. Stay safe, everyone out there. Thanks for tuning in.